of it in the two subsections of this game of chess. The first section, or subsection rather, shows you a scene from aristocratic life, a lady with a companion. And the second subsection shows you a conversation between two prostitutes about the third one in a pub late at night time. Now, the lifelessness of life, as you can see, will emerge from this dialogue or between the lady and her companion. Though they have been staying together for long, we don't know exactly whether they are husband or wife, but that's why I say the lady and the companion. We are not told whether they are married or not, but it appears they have been staying together and their life is marked by uneventfulness. Nothing happens in their life. So, life in this strata of society is lifeless because there is no life. And in the second subsection, where the two prostitutes talk about the third prostitute, life is lifeless in the sense, life is lifeless because there is too much of life. So that's paradoxical. At one end, we have no life, the uneventful life, and the second, by its mechanical fertility, too much of life. Life seems to be a very vulgar affair. And that's why life has become, it has become a part of the West and a feature of the Westland. The world appears like a wasteland to Eliot. Now let us go through the section. Before we do that, let me just make one point. This is the most autobiographical of the sections, most autobiographical part of the Westland. Why? I will tell you when we finish up the first subsection. The title, I think, the original title of this section was in the cage, and that's a title Eliot had borrowed from Henry James's short story of the same name, In the Cage, which depicted the life of a bank clerk or a bank cashier. As you know, in the bank, the cashier is encaged for his safety and security. Henry James shows the life of such an encaged bank cashier. That, I think, was a better title. But Eliot has, for reasons best known to him, changed the title from In the Cage to A Game of Chess. In the Cage is a title that carries forward the theme of entrapment introduced in the epigraph. But a game of chess is positively misleading, and especially Eliot's own note on this section and the title, A Game of Chess, is positively misleading. Eliot is sending people on a false wild goose chase here, because he says this title refers to a seduction scene in Middleton's play, Women Beware Women. Now, actually, if you look at what happens in this section and what actually happens in that play, there is no relation at all. There is no similarity between the two scenes. In Middleton's play, there is the seduction scene. The Duke seduces a lady upstairs, and down below, the lady's mother in law is playing a game of chess. And the moves that she makes on the chessboard correspond with the moves that the Duke makes in seducing the lady, advance, retreat, etc. But in Eliot's poem, A Game of Chess here, there is no seduction. Nobody is seducing anyone. So that's a positive misdirection, a false scent that Eliot has given. And many older commentators, early scholars and commentators, followed that scent to their own frustration. They didn't find any similarity between the two scenes. That's why I feel that the original title, In the Cage, is a much better title than A Game of Chess. In fact, I have my own reasons to suppose that by a game of chess, Eliot has some other game of chess in mind. What is that? I will tell you at the end of the first subsection. Let us start the reading of the section without any more ado. Yes, a game of chess. The chair she sat in, like a burnished stone, glowed on the marble, where the glass held up by the standards wrought with fruited wines, from which a golden Cupidon peeped out. Another hid his eyes behind his wing, doubled the flames of seven branched candelabra, reflecting light upon the table as the glitter of her jewels rose to meet it. From satin cases poured in rich in profusion, in vials of ivory and colored glass, unstoppered, lurked her strange synthetic perfumes, unguent, powdered, or liquid, troubled, confused, and dropped and drowned the sense in odors, stirred by the air that freshened from the window. These ascended in fattening the prolonged candle flames, flung their smoke into the laqueria, stirring the patterns on the coffered ceiling. Huge sea would fade with copper, burned green and orange, framed by the colored stones, in which sad light a carved dolphin swam. Above the antique mantle was displayed, as though a window gave upon the sylvan scene, the change of Philomel, the barbarous king so rudely forced. Yet there the nightingale filled all the desert with inviolable voice, and still she cried, and still the world pursued. Chut, chut, to dirty ears. And other withered stumps of time were told upon the walls, staring forms leaned out, leaning, hushing the room enclosed. Now, let us see this. As you can easily see, this is a description of rich splendor and magnificence. A lady at the toilet, you know, Alexander Pope in The Rape of the Lock shows you Belinda at the toilet. And this paragraph is supposed to be a parody of that. And also, in the very first line, you find an allusion to Antony and Cleopatra. The chair she sat in like a burning stone glowed on the marble. This is a clear allusion to the first meeting between Antony and Cleopatra, as narrated by Enobarbus in Shakespeare's play Antony and Cleopatra. Now, there, the it's not the chair; it's the throne she sat in. This allusion, this is not on. This allusion brings out the essential difference between a lady like Cleopatra and this lady. If Cleopatra is called the serpent of the Nile, if she is the lady of passion and poison, this lady is synthetic, a parody of Cleopatra, synthetic like her perfumes. And the description that you find, this lady sitting at the toilet, surrounded by what I can call only baroque magnificence and decadence. The jewels, the saints' perfumes, unguent, powdered or liquid, all this, and the furniture also. It's a rich description. And originally, in the original Westland, this passage is very different. It's more parodic. The toilet scene and the throne is something very different. In the original Westland, it's the other meaning of the word toilet. And the lady is at the toilet scene, sitting on a throne, carries extremely parodic intentions. And looking at this paragraph, Eliot's guru, Ezra Pound, was not very happy with this paragraph. And he writes in the margin, this looks too much like AP, AP meaning Alexander Pope. This looks too much like AP. If you intend this para as a parody of Pope, remember that you can parody Pope only if you can write better than Pope, and you can't. This was a very manifest, very clear slap in Eliot's face that you can't write like Pope. So don't try to parody Pope. Write something different. Pope is the best in his genre. And so Eliot turned to this rich description, which once again he borrows from. This is not his own. This, as Robert Graves has shown, Robert Graves and Laura Riding have a book called Survey of Modernist Poetry. And there they show that this opening passage of a game of chess is reminiscent, is borrowed from a passage in Lamia, a long narrative poem by John Keats. There, the serpent woman, Lamia is a serpent woman, and she invites her young boy, her lover, Lucius, to her palace. And the description of the palace matches with the description that you have in the game of chess here. So from Alexander Pope, Eliot flew to John Keats, a romantic poet. Now, The next lines show you the dialogue between the man and the lady. Footsteps shuffled on the stair, under the firelight, under the brush. Her hair spread out in fiery points, glowed into words, then would be savagely still. Very fine phrase, savagely still. The lady sat brushing her hair and brushing vigorously, so vigorously that uh, the hair spread out in fiery points, glowed into words as if they wanted to say something, and but they would be savagely still. So the words would not speak, the hair would not speak, but it was seething inside, savagely still. Wanted to say something, but did not say anything. In the same way, the lady speaks now. Her nerves are bad tonight. Look at the way she speaks. My nerves are bad tonight. Yes, bad. Stay with me. Speak to me. Why do you never speak? Speak. What are you thinking of? What thinking? What? I never know what you're thinking. Think. I think we are in Rat Chalet, where the dead men lost their bones. The This conversation between the lady and her companion is in this contrapuntal way. The lady saying, my nerves are bad tonight, stay with me. And then you get a very flat reply from the man. I think we are in Rat Salad, where the dead men lost their bones. What's that noise? The wind under the door. What is it, that noise now? What is the wind doing? Nothing again. Nothing. You know nothing. Do you see nothing? Do you remember nothing? I remember those are pearls that were his eyes. Are you alive or not? Is there nothing in your head? But that Shakespearean rag. It's so elegant, it's so intelligent. Let's see this now, this conversation, this piece of what's the wind doing? Once again, we flat answer, nothing, nothing. And then she is tired of listening to the word nothing. Do you know? And in exasperation, she asks him, do you know nothing? Do you see nothing? Do you remember nothing? Now here, in the original Wasteland, there was the line, I remember the hyacinth garden. But the line is suppressed here. Why he suppressed? Why he cancelled out line? I don't know. But he did it, that's a sad loss of meaning. I remember the hyacinth garden. This line, it shows you in unequivocal light that the man and the lady here are an extension of the lovers in the hyacinth garden. And as you will very soon find, do you know nothing? I remember nothing. That's exactly the words that the man says. I knew nothing. I saw nothing. And then those are pearls that were his eyes. A line from Shakespeare's Tempest, where Ariel tells Ferdinand about the death of his father. He says, your father has suffered a sea change. And the sea change is Those are pearls that were his eyes, and of his lips corals are made. Meaning the father had drowned, and that's how he died. But Eliot tells those are pearls that were his eyes. This is a reference to tempest, and I see this is very significant. And then why? I'll tell you. Just wait for a few moments. Are you alive or not? Is there nothing in your head but that Shakespearean rag? And then the snobbish, so intelligent, so elegant. And then, in utter despair, she says, "What shall I do now? What shall I do? I shall rush out as I am and walk the street with my hair down so. What shall we do tomorrow? What shall we ever do? Start water at 10, and if it rains, a close car at 4. And we shall play a game of chess, placing lidless eyes and waiting for a knock upon the door. Now, here you can clearly see the uneventfulness in the lives of these two persons. They are staying together all right, but their life is simply filled with uneventfulness. Their life has no life at all. The lady is, as you can see, absolutely high strung. If she is high strung, the man has gone a step further. He has sunk into apathy, just doesn't feel anything. And so there is a lack of communication between the two, as you can see. And when she brushes her hair once again and asks, "What shall I do? What shall I do?" And then make a mental note of that line where she says, "I shall rush out onto the street with my hair down so." Please make a note of this because this is going to appear in the final section. This is what one can call thematic orchestration of Eliot. Now, I said the reference to tempest is essential or very significant. Significant because in the tempest, this Ferdinand and Miranda also play a game of chess. But that game of chess and this game of chess, look what a world of difference it is. In the tempest, the game of chess ends in mating, and the pun is intended. The game of chess ends in mating, whereas here, the game of chess has acquired analgesic properties. It is some kind of an activity to forget for a moment the pain, the agony of their uneventful life. What Tennyson says in Memoriam, to forget the sorrow of Hallam's death, he undertakes this sad mechanic exercise of writing rhymed verse, so that at least for a moment he becomes oblivious of the sorrow eating at his heart. In the same way here, a game of chess has become a kind of analgesic. It enables them to forget their essential loneliness for a while. And so the reference is to that, and therefore the allusion, those are pearls that were his eyes. That line from Tempest acquires such significance. The man and the lady are an extension of the Hyacinth Garden lovers. So it's the young, fresh Ferdinand and Miranda have turned into this high strung lady and apathetic man. This is a very sad picture. That's why life is lifeless here. This is highly disappointing. And now you come to the second section. Before you go to the second section, let me just tell you a story. When Eliot read out the wasteland to his circle of intimate friends like Virginia Woolf, Aldous Huxley, and others, there was a lady called Mary Hutchinson. And when she listened to the poem, especially to this section, Mary Hutchinson immediately exclaimed, as Virginia Woolf tells us in her diary. Mary Hutchinson exclaimed, "Oh, it is Tom's autobiography, and the melancholy one." Now, ever since then, people have taken this conversation as symbolic of the daily conversation of Mr. Eliot and his first wife, Vivian. Actually, that is far from true. Because while writing this section of the poem, Eliot wrote it in close consultation with Vivian. Vivian was very fond of this section. In fact, in the facsimile edition, you find around this passage, Vivian has drawn a circle. She has encircled this passage and wrote her appreciation of the passage, saying it is wonderful. And she wrote one line which is included in the second subsection in this conversation of two prostitutes. What do you get married for if you don't want children? That line is not Eliot's, this is his wife's. And she was so happy with this that she requested Eliot to make a fair copy of this section and give it to her, which of course he did. So, Vivian, when she was not suffering from fit, was an extremely jovial lady, and Eliot did find some moments of happiness with her, but they were very far and few in between. Now let's come to the second section. In Cockney speech, there are demotic English, as we can say. It's a late night scene in the bar. Two prostitutes are talking, and the bartender wants to close his shop. See how beautifully it is done. When Lil's husband got demoralized, I said, I didn't mince my words. I said to her myself, hurry up, please, it's time. That's the bartender speaking. Now Albert's coming back. Make yourself a bit smart. He'll want to know what you did with that money he gave you to get yourself some teeth. He did. I was there. You have been all out. You have them all out, Lil, and get a nice set. He said, I swear I can't bear to look at you. And no more can't I said, and think of poor Albert. He has been in the army 4 years and he wants a good time. And if you don't give it to him, there's others will, I said. Now, take one thing. This scene is between prostitutes, the whole of Babylon, symbol of stormy sex. And here you get some unpleasant details of their professional life or professional hazards. This lady, Lil, at the age of 31, has to wear dentures. Her body is racked by 3 abortions. All these seeds of mechanical fertility raise nothing but disgust about life, as you can find. He has been in the army, he wants a good time, and if you don't give it him, there is others will, I said. Oh, is there? She said. Something of that, I said. Then I'll know who to thank, she said, and gave me a straight look. Hurry up, please, it's time. If you don't like it, you can get on with it. I said, others can pick and choose if you can't. But if Albert makes off, it won't be for lack of tailing. You ought to be ashamed, I said, to look so antique. And her only 31. I can't help it, she said, pulling a long face. It's them pills I took to bring it off, I said. She has had 5 already and nearly died of young George. Amy said it would be all right, but I never been the same. You are a proper fool, I said. Well, if Albert won't leave you alone, there it is, I said. Why do you get married for if you don't want children? This is a line that Vivian contributed, not Eliot's song. And you can see that line in her handwriting in the original Westland. Hurry up, please, it's time. Well, that Sunday, Albert was home. They had a hot gammon and they asked me to dinner to get the beauty of it hot. Hurry up, please, it's time. Hurry up, please, it's time. Good night, Bill. Good night, Lou. Good night, May. Good night, Tata. Good night. Good night. Good night, ladies. Good night, sweet ladies. Good night. Good night. As you can see, those who have done Hamlet will easily remember this is a line before Ophelia, the mad Ophelia, uh, drowns herself. The mad Ophelia, just before she dies, comes onto the stage and she gives flowers to one and all. And this is the line that she says, good night, ladies, good night, sweet ladies, good night, before she dies. Now here Eliot picks, that is the greatness of Eliot. Eliot steals these lines and gives these lines his own meaning. Now here, good night, ladies, good night, sweet ladies. There's an Eliot commentator by the name John T. Mayer who has done the first study, I think, on the unpublished poems of Eliot. He was able to see them in the New York State Library by permission of Mrs. Valerie Eliot. He was the first one to do it. The Unseen T.S. Eliot, that's the title of his book. The Unseen Voices, something like that. But I'll tell you tomorrow the name exactly. Now, John T. Mayer says, when Eliot borrows that line from Ophelia, from Hamlet, good night, ladies, good night, sweet ladies. It is as it were the quester in the poem bids goodbye to all the ladies ladies are disappointing to this quester. Whether it is Cleopatra, whether it is this young lady, these prostitutes, or the young lovers in the Hyacinth Garden, everywhere love is disappointing. So there is a feeling that he has wasted his time running after these women. And so now he buries them. He buries those ladies of his dreams. He's bidding farewell to them. Good night, ladies. Good night, sweet ladies. You phantoms of delight. Phantoms of delight meant only for a moment's ornament. Nothing more than that. So they are that way disappointing to the quester. And when romanticism like this dies in you, the next thing that you turn to is naturally asceticism. And appropriately enough, the next section, the third section, starts with is entitled The Fire Sermon, Buddhist, the famous sermon of Buddha, the Fire Sermon. So, with the death of romanticism in him, asceticism wakes up, which is natural, as you find in young days also. When there is disappointment in love, you turn to ascetic ways, at least fashionable for a while. Then once again, there's a relapse of romanticism. That goes on and on. Like this, youth is spent mostly. So, this is where you find the lifelessness of life, completely disappointing. That is another feature of the Westland. And now from next section, the Fire Sermon, you find the Fire Sermon brings out another aspect of life in Westland. But we will see that tomorrow. If you have any questions now, you can, of course, ask. I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, students. So, any of you, if you have any questions, you can either type them or you can ask, unmute yourself and ask the question to Dr. Madge. Yes, Kanak.
That was a very nice session. So thank you for that. And my question is regarding the original title, uh, as to
In the
how in
cage.
the cage uh, would be an appropriate, like what parts of this section makes in the cage an appropriate title for it.
Yes. Now, as you can see, the first subsection, the lady and her companion, their life has become a cage. They are entrapped into a relationship. I didn't use the word, um, if you are familiar with the game of chess, in chess, the ultimate move, of course, is the mating season. And I use that mating season as this pun. So the game ends in mating. That happens in Shakespeare's Tempest. But here in the Westland, this relationship has ended, has come to a stage which in a game of chess is called Zugzwang. Zugzwang is a position or a stage in the play where the opponent, it is because of the blockade that he faces, The opponent cannot make any move without inviting a check. So it's in a sense, he can't move at all anywhere. The situation of the man and the lady is exactly like this. They can't move out of the relationship. It is some kind of a trap. And so that's why I think the theme of entrapment introduced in the epigraph is carried forward here if you have the name in the cage. But for reasons best known to him, as I said, Eliot changed the title from In the Cage to A Game of Chess. The limitation of a game of chess is that it doesn't cover the second subsection. A game of chess doesn't apply to the life of those two prostitutes and their conversation. It's simply restricted. It is restricted to the first subsection, the life in the higher society. That's why I feel in the case is a better title. But that is my opinion. One can have different opinion also. Yes. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Yes. Yes.
Anyone else with a question? Okay, how can we interpret the portrayal of women in Eliot's The Game of Chess? Does it suggest does it suggest any misogynistic tendencies in the author? This question is by Wrinkle.
There's a book, uh, I forget the name of the author. Something, name is Pinty or something like that. But the title of the book is Women in T.S. Eliot. And the argument of that book is Eliot is basically misogynistic. uh, Frankly, I don't accept it's not misogynistic. It's simply a romantic expectation about winning, built up largely from reading of literature until now. And your experience doesn't match with what you have seen in literature. So the experience and expectation don't match. It's not misogyny as such. Eliot loved his mother so much. With the first wife also, remember, he did the first very impulsive act, which he never. Eliot was not by nature impulsive. He was very deliberate, very slow to act. But when he saw Vivian in the month of April, within a month or so, without caring what the family said, Eliot married her. He rushed into marriage. So, and with the second wife, of course, as everybody knows, he met his heaven there. For last 8 years of his life, there was simply a paradise for him. As you can see from his poem, A Dedication to My Wife. That is the final. So thanks to Valerie, Eliot was able to at least get some happiness. This tormented soul found some happiness in the last 8 years of his life, mainly because of a very devoted wife like Valerie. So there is no question of misogyny here. It's a lady simple, if you want to see, there are so many good descriptions of women also in Eliot. One, of course, is dedication to my wife. That's one thing.
Okay, thank you, sir. The next question is by Imisha. You mentioned positively misleading when you were dealing with the title and first subsection. Can you explain that with more clarity?
Oh, yes, sure. It's misleading in the sense, Eliot's note on this section, Eliot provided his notes to the wasteland. In his note on the game of chess, he very, uh, very clearly mentions Middleton's play, Women Beware Women. And there he says, this scene in the game of chess is very similar to the seduction scene in Women Beware Women. Now, actually, in Women Beware Women, there is the question of seduction. But here, there is no seduction at all. So, in what way does this scene between a lady and a companion correspond or even contrast to the scene in the Women Beware Women? It is simply a false scent. And Eliot himself in 1957 acknowledged that he had sent scholars and uh, commentators on a false scent for which he apologized. Many people, instead of reading The Wasteland, went to The Golden Bough, Ritual to Romance, and many other works. For instance, we were forced to read The Golden Bough whole, The Ritual to Romance. And people just failed to understand what that had to do with the poem, except in very incidental symbolism. That's all. So it is misleading in this sense. It throws no light on what happens in the poem. That's why I say it's misleading. And I told you of the line which Eliot suppressed when the lady asks, "Do you know nothing? Do you remember nothing?" The man says, "I remember the hyacinth garden." Had he kept that line in the poem, people would have immediately seen the connection between the hyacinth garden lovers and these two people, that they are their uh, copies, or they are the same people who were young in hyacinth garden. Now, after marriage also, they are locked up in such a futile relationship. All these things are suppressed, and that's why I say a game of chess is not a very satisfactory title. It is almost positively misleading. And you will get ample examples of Eliot misleading the people in the second section now. Sorry, in the next section, Fire Sermon. Yes.
Okay, this is Rutvi. Thank you for the wonderful session, sir. A
Mm.
question is the phrase, hurry up, please, it's time, repeats many a times. What is
Yes.
the role that time plays in this section, considering the awareness of time that the writers carry?
Yeah. Now, hurry up, in one sense, at a very literal level, hurry up, please, it's time is the something that the bartender reminds the ladies, please uh, shut up your mouth and go out. Now it's time for me to close the shop. So that is one reminder at a very superficial level. If you take it, if you look beyond it also, you find hurry up, please, it's time. It's time, what time, and for whom it is time. For the quester, it is time. It is his time. Hurry up, please, it's time. It's time for you are wasting time running after women. This is simple, meaning this quest for beauty and love on the in the romantic sense, that is a clear waste of time. Please do something more useful to your life. Hurry up, please, it's time. Don't waste any more time. And as you can find, this is what happens from the fire. In the fire sermon, also, this feeling is extenuated. And finally, in the last section, what the thunder said, the quester finds a solution about fertilizing the land, how to fertilize this wasteland. That we will see when you come to it. But however, please, it's just a timely warning not to waste any more time. Yes.
Okay, so thank you for that. And the next question is by Pratiksha, who wants to know what is the symbol of the wasteland?
Symbol of the wasteland.
Yes.
Can you? The wasteland itself is a symbol. So, wasteland itself is a symbol of the the arid world. Let us take. Let us use the words of Blake. England is a green and pleasant land. The world is a green and pleasant land, but it has become a wasteland for various reasons and in various ways. This poem shows you various ways in which life has become spiritually arid, the moral dimension is gone, and all these things will come out in the final section. Life has become extremely secular, moral dimension has gone out of life. We are just robotic automata, nothing more than that. And so that's why, if you want to uh, refertilize the land and ourselves, we have to do something about it. And the world being so, the basic question that is asked in the Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, on which the final section is based. The basic question that is asked is, the world being such, now the basic question, existential question is how to live in such a way. And an answer is provided in that section. What the answer is, I will not tell you now because the end should not be told. Otherwise, the interest is gone. So let me maintain some suspense till the end, what that solution is. Yes, yes. Okay, thank you. Yes. Thank you. Yes. Shall we say goodbye, ladies, sweet ladies? Yes. What was the comment? Eliot was not fond of romantics.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, sir. I hope my voice is not echoing.
Yes. It's a bit faint voice, but we can hear.
Yeah. So my question is, Eliot was not so fond of the romantics. Yet
Yes.
there are some instances of references to Keats and others.
Mm.
So through this text, what can we understand of Eliot's take on the romantics, if at all we can?
Mhm. I'll tell you. Uh, there was a school of thought that said that Eliot himself was a romantic who was ashamed to be a romantic. At first, when the early commentators hailed Eliot as anti-romantic, as a classicist who led a war against the Wordsworthian romantics and all that. Eliot's own Eliot's own remarks about the romantics also suggest that he was not very fond of romantics. And yet he was, if you look at the earlier poetry, the juvenile poetry, you find he's very much indebted. He wrote very much like the romantics, like Shelley and Keats. That style of writing, lyrical style of writing, changed after 1908 when Arthur Simmons entered into Eliot's life through the book The Symbolist Movement in Literature. And from then on, Eliot started writing differently. And maybe for matters of literary politics, Eliot did not speak very highly of romantics. But more so, if you look at very closely, if you look at his essays, reviews, you find Eliot was not so much opposed to the romantic as to the pale imitators of romantics. That is mainly the Georgians. And about Georgians, he has extremely nasty things to say. One thing I can tell you, in one of his reviews of the Georgian anthology, Eliot says, because we have never learned to criticize Wordsworth, Shelley, and Keats, Shelley, and Wordsworth punish us from their graves with the annual scourge of a Georgian anthology. In another review, Manoj's, some contemporary poets' review of that anthology, Eliot says, I do not make the mistake of incriminating the romantics in the production of a Georgian anthology. And then he goes on saying a lot many things. So Eliot was not so much opposed to the romantics as he was to the pale imitators. And the main question was, our world has changed. We can't write like romantics now. We can't write like Wordsworth and Shelley now because the world has changed. And if we have to express sensibly of what a man feels and thinks in this age, at this time, you can't go back to Wordsworth and Shelley and Keats. Simply speaking, look at Wordsworth did not have to face the problems of Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. After 1855, 1857, when Darwin published his Origin of the Species, the world changed. There was a paradigm shift. After that, you can't write about nature in the same way. Aldous Huxley has a fine essay titled Wordsworth in the Tropics. And the question is that he asks is, if Wordsworth were born in Africa, would he have written the way he did? And the answer clearly is no. So that's why, you find around 1920, there was this movement, make it new. Let us express the new sensibility in a new way. And so they tried to run away from the romantics, but they could not do it. From time to time, you find, even in Eliot, traces of romanticism. Yes, that was mainly. In fact, that's a part of my thesis, that Eliot was very much a romantic, who was not ashamed to be a romantic. He was afraid to be a romantic. That's the thing. Because romanticism was a strong force, emotion was a strong force, and he was not very much, uh, he didn't want to be swayed away by emotions. So he was afraid of the emotion, the force of the emotions. Yeah. I think
Thank you,
that
sir.
answers your question, Rutvi. Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mm.
Any more questions?
No, I don't think. Yeah.
Asina sir, would you like to say a few words?
Actually, I spoke a little yesterday,
Okay.
and so basically, I have nothing really to say except that Dr. Madge provided some new insights, especially when he talked about the earlier title and so on, because we all can see the link with Cleopatra and Shakespeare's play, and there's obviously a reference in the section to the Sylvan scene, that is John Keats. Uh, the change of Philomel by the barbarous king is one event that could perhaps be uh, developed slightly more, because
Yes.
let's remember that is something mentioned in Metamorphosis, and
Yes.
maybe Dr. Madhya can talk a little about the change of Philomel, and then I think we should be able to wind up.
Okay. Okay. Shall I do it now?
Yeah, I think you can.
Oh, okay. Okay. You see, it's a mythological story. It's told in Ovid's Metamorphosis also. Um, there was the king of Thrace by the name Tereus. He gets married to Procne, and her sister Philomel also comes to stay with her new home now. And when Tereus sees Philomel, like any husband, he finds the wife's sister more attractive than the wife. So, uh, what he does is, he does a very brutal thing with her. He rapes her, and because she should not tell his name, he cuts out her tongue also. Her tongue is cut by Tereus, and so she cannot speak. But she was very clever. Procne and Philomel used to knit together, and in the weavings, in the uh, embroidery work, Philomel wrote the name of Tereus, and that is how Procne came to know why her sister has suddenly become dumb and mute. And when she learns the name of Tereus and all this, she starts asking questions too. And the man didn't like. He picks up a battle axe and runs to and rushes to kill them off. The two sisters start running, and he starts chasing them. As he's about to overtake them, God Apollo changes Philomel into the nightingale, and Procne is turned into a swallow. They both fly away, escaping the battle axe of Tereus. So ever since then, the mythology of the myth is that nightingale sings a sad song in the darkness, generally all by herself. In Ode to the Nightingale, you will find the nightingale is in the dark, darkling I listen, and all that. So the song that nightingale sings is generally a melancholy song. And I don't know why, if the Nightingale song is sad, why is it that anybody with singing skill is called the Nightingale of India? And unless we subscribe to Shelley's belief that our sweetest songs are those that tell us of saddest thought, so she changed, and the Nightingale sings a um, sad song, melancholy song, and her hooting cry is "Terry, Terry." That's how she still announces the name of the man who violated her. And in the game of chess, there you find, uh, as though the window gave upon a sylvan scene, the change of Philomel is there. And look at that word inviolable. There she fills she fills the desert with her inviolable voice. She's already violated, and her inviolable voice. Now Teru cannot violate the nightingale. So her voice therefore is inviolable, desert air. And these are, as Eliot says in that section, withered stumps of time. The mythological stories. The mythological stories are the withered stumps of time. They were told upon the wall, various mythological stories. Now, this story, the change of Philomel, has a particular relevance to this situation between the man and the lady. It's for you to decide according to your likes and dislikes who Philomel is and who Tereus is. It's not a very happy situation. So that's how it is. And I think that was one thing. And you, Dr. Sinha, wanted me to say something else. The mythological story, the myth of Philomel has many variations, meaning it's the one that I told you is from Ovid. In Greek mythology, there are many variations of this tale.
Yes.
Mm.
So, is that all now for today's session? Anybody else wants to make any observations or anything else? Okay, so, sir, should we just wrap up?
Maybe I think we should.
Yeah. Okay, Dr. Madge, thank you so much. I wish I had the benefit of listening to you when I was doing Baseline as a graduate student. I was struggling to understand all these references, but
Mm,
unfortunately, I did not have that privilege. But
mm,
I'm sure the students today must have really benefited from this session so much, and also yesterday's sessions and the two sessions we have tomorrow and day after. So thank you very much once again,
mm. Thank you. Thank
and
you.
we will see you again tomorrow.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
sure. So thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks,
So,
everyone. Bye bye.
so I also say good night, ladies. Good day, ladies. Good day. So,
Thank you so much, sir.